go. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, you can post them. It should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen like a phone. If you're on a larger screen like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. Also want to mention that you can ask your question at any time 24/7 and it will be answered during the next live office hours. You do not have to wait until the office hours start to ask your question. You can ask at any time. I do recommend that you attend the office hours to see the answer to your question, but if you're unable to make it, hopefully you're out playing some golf or something like that, you can still see the answer to your question by accessing the office hours archive. You can get to the office hours archive by clicking the green button below the video where it says access. I believe, what does it say exactly? It says view the office hours archive here. So if you select that, I'll bring you to the office hours archive. Lastly, I want to mention I do offer online lessons. This is where I work with students one-on-one using the OnForm app. We start out by getting a better understanding of your golf game, the current state of your golf game, and what you really need to work on. Then we send, then you send videos. Then I look at your swing or your putting stroke or whatever it might be, because it's not just limited to the full swing. It's the full. The whole golf game, and then we might tinker with the technique a little bit. We might go over some drills, help you get better at doing certain things and things like that. So it's just more detailed and specific to your game. So if you are interested in that, all you have to do is click the button above the video here. You should see a button somewhere on this screen where you can sign up for the online lessons. If you don't see any spots available, no worries. Just click the join the waiting list. And then whenever I open up spots, we will send out an email to everybody on the waiting list first to give them the first opportunity. And then shortly after that, we'll send out an email to everybody else. All right. Let's get into it here. Let me refresh this really quick. Make sure I got the latest and greatest in there. All right. So Guffron says, hi Q, how to be more consistent? My game is improving, but not consistent. I shot 41 front and 50 back due to some blowout holes. You mentioned, okay, so that sounds like that's a different question. All right, so let's talk about that a little bit. A little bit of a funny story. I just mentioned that I do online lessons, and as a start to the online lesson, I send every student that starts out with me or starts back up with me or whatever, I send them a questionnaire to fill out just to kind of find the current state of their golf game. And I used to have a question on there that asked, what are you hoping to get out of the online lessons or whatever it might be? And I would say 95, maybe even more than that, 95% of the time, the answer to the question is, I just want to be more consistent. I just want to be more consistent. So I stopped putting the question on there because it wasn't really helpful, because literally everyone wants to be more consistent. But let's talk about consistency and what that really means. So going 41-50, very normal. That is very, very normal. If you're expecting to always shoot like within a certain shot range, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure a little bit. You're going to set yourself up to think that you're inconsistent and all this stuff. When in reality, every single golfer is inconsistent. Even the best golfers in the world are inconsistent. Go look at the all the rounds that are posted for professional golfers, right? You're going to see tail of 2 nines all the time. You're going to see that. You're going to see big differences. And those are with the best golfers in the world, right? So if the best golfers in the world aren't consistent, like we're thinking we need to be consistent, then we can't really be that consistent either. I'm sure everyone on here has had the exact same thing happen to them, where they shot 1 9 where they played great, and then another 9 where they played poorly. And that's just golf. That's just how it is. So if you're expecting that to change, like I said, it's kind of setting yourself up for failure a little bit. So don't expect it to change. It's going to be the same. This isn't the first time it's happened, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time it's going to happen. But here's what we can do. What we can do is there's something that's called the 20 stroke rule. Let me explain that first. So what that basically means is most golfers in general, in like a given year, if they're an avid golfer, they're going to have about a 20 stroke difference between their best round and their worst round. So if you look at professional golfers, typically with professional golfers, their best round of the year is usually somewhere in like the low 60s. And then their worst round of the year is usually around 80. That's usually what you're going to see. So that's the best of the best golfers in the world have that big of a variable. And the reason is that there are just so many variables in golf. So many variables in golf. The conditions that you play in, the lies that you get. Some you're going to have days where you get really, really unlucky with the lies. You get a bad lie like every time. And you're going to have some days where you hit it in bad spots, but you get great lies and you're in a great position every time. You're going to have days where you feel like you can do no wrong. You just make swings and everything happens the way that you want to. And you're going to have some days where it feels like you're making good swings, but man, nothing is turning out right. You can't really figure out what's going on, right? That's just golf. That's just the way it is. There are just so many variables, and a lot of them are just completely out of your control as well. There's not a lot you can really do about them. So we can't really expect to be consistent in that sense. But what we can do is we can take that window. So maybe like right now, like a bad day for you might be like that 4150 that you talked about. But maybe if we keep working on our game and getting better and better and better, we can take that 4150 and we can make that into more like a 3845, right? And that's that's essentially what it is. So you're not going to get rid of the tail of two nines. It's just not going to happen. Don't expect it to happen. It's not going to happen. You're always going to have that tail of two nines. It's going to happen. Everyone on here has had it. If they played plenty of golf, and everyone in here is going to have it many more times. So that's very, very normal. But what we can do is we can take the tail of two nines and we can lower both of those nines, right? And the way that we do that is by identifying where the key issues are, right? So really, what it takes to be good at golf, it takes the ability to the ability to make ball first contact, to hit the ball in the middle of the face, to square up the face, to have a neutral path to the ball, and to have a little bit of speed behind that. If we can do all those things, we can be good at golf. That is what it takes. So you want to identify, okay, where are you struggling with those things, right? You had the blow up holes, right? You mentioned you had some blow up holes. Well, what happened? What happened on the blow up holes, right? What was kind of the key, the trigger to the blow up hole? I would almost guarantee you that one of those things that I mentioned, ball first contact, center face contact, square face, neutral path, lack of speed, probably speed is probably not in there. That usually doesn't lead to blow up holes. But one of those first four that I mentioned, most likely actually probably one of the first three, your ground contact, where you're hitting the ground, where you're hitting it on the face, and the direction your club face is pointing at impact in relationship to the direction the club head is moving through impact. The relationship of those two, that is usually what causes the blow up holes, is something being way off. So you hit a shot greatly, and maybe you end up out of bounds or something like that, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to kind of identify those things, and then you work specifically on those things to get those even better. So that's essentially what it comes down to. I do recommend if you're really serious about it and you want to get the most out of your game and have it happen the fastest way possible, I recommend the online lessons. If you're interested in that, click the link above to sign up if I have some spots available. If not, join the waiting list. But what I would do is I would identify those things, and then we have plenty of videos on the website. If you just use the search on the website, which if you're on the normal website, in the upper right hand corner, you're going to see a little search box. If you select that, and let's say it's strike, right? Strike location. let me see what happens here. If I just, I gotta create another page here. There we go. So if I go and I search, let's say it's chunking, right? So chunks. So if I go and I search chunks, man, I'm just gonna find, here's a video on, there's probably 100 videos on chunking the ball, on the website, right? So there's lots and lots and lots of things you can do. But if you don't want to kind of sift through all that, want something specific to you, I recommend the online lessons, or the many courses that we have. We have lots of courses that tackle specific issues. So those would be the things that I would recommend doing to improve your consistency. You also asked about mental game books. So anything by Bob Rotella, anything by, he's written many books on golf, specifically on golf and the mental game. So Dr. Bob Rotella, do a Google search of that. I don't know how many books he's written, but he's written a lot. And there's specific ones. There's ones where they're just kind of more about putting. There are ones that are just like having a champion mindset. There's several of them out there. There's a lot of them out there. Some other ones, Zen Golf is good. Zen Golf, Fearless Golf. Fearless Golf is good. There's a lot. Golf is not a game of perfect. That's a Bob Rotella book. Golf is not a game of perfect. And if you look on here, these books, go to a bookstore. So we have a bookstore near where I'm at, half price bookstores. My wife is into books, so she goes to the bookstore. Sometimes I go with her, and I'll go over to the golf section. They usually have several books in there. They're very cheap. Like this book was $4, and I think it's normally, it's $21 normally new. This book I think I got for $6, and it's $18 new. This one I think was actually given to me, but you could probably get this at a one of those bookstores for like $5. It's still all the same words and stuff, Tournament Players Playbook. That's a solid one as well. Wasn't one of my favorites, but it was still pretty good. So there are lots and lots and lots of books out there. Let's see here. See if I can find Tournament Golfers Playbook. I don't know if I have any other specific mental game books. There's another one that I read that's like he's it's not necessarily specific to golf, but it's just, oops. All right. Sorry about that. It was it temporarily froze, but it's still going good. Yeah, so those would be the books that I would recommend. The books that I've read. There's many others out there, but those would be the ones that I'd be checking out. That I can personally say I've read and liked and were pretty good. But the one that I was getting ready to say, Brett McCabe, he's a golf, he's a sports psychologist kind of guy. And he had a book that I read a couple years ago, Escape from Suckville or something like that, I think it was called. I thought it was pretty good as well. So there's lots of them out there. You probably can't go wrong really with any of them. I'm sure any of them are going to have some good things, but I know pretty much all those books by Bob Rotella I've read 4 or 5 of them, and they're all pretty solid. So that's what I would recommend. All righty, keep the questions coming here. Got plenty of time left. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. So Axel says, "Hi Q, I keep closing my club face too much in the downswing. Do you have a drill to control the club face better?" Well, I would just use the grip. That's what I would start with. Is I would use the grip that closely matches what you're coming into impact. So if you're coming into impact and the club face is too closed, I would recommend using a weaker grip. That's probably going to be the easiest thing to do because it's just something that you're doing in your setup. So as opposed to trying to change how you're coming through contact, which is very difficult to do because it's happening at the fastest point of the swing. So it's more difficult to control. So if you can come through impact and do what you do naturally, and then just use a weaker grip that will open up the face, that would likely be the easiest thing to do. So that's what I would recommend doing out of the gate. And if you're not familiar with what that means, what I mean by weakening the grip is by how your hands are placed on the grip, right? So basically, let's say right now you're set up like this, where you have a pretty strong grip, where the lead hand's more on top, the trail hand is under, like this. Well, if I weaken my grip, I'm just positioning I'm keeping that club face square, but I'm just, instead of having my lead hand more on top, I'm just going to position my lead hand not quite as on top, more on the side of the grip, right? And then having my trail hand match it. So that might be something you may want to look into. And then, if that still doesn't really do the trick, you're still coming in and closing the face, then what I would try to do is I'd try to feel like you're hitting some slices. Really try to slice the ball, get some balls to actually slice, because if you're coming in with the face too close, the ball's going to hook too much, right? If that is what's happening, if the ball's not hooking too much, then your face isn't too close. It's only too close if the ball's hooking, right? So if the ball is hooking, then the face is definitely too close, and we want to get the face more open, closer to square or square. And the way to do that would be exaggerating the opposite. So the first thing, like I said, I would do is I would weaken the grip to get that face more open, make the same swing and just have the face more open. It's just going to be the easiest thing to do. It may be, you may not be comfortable with it at address, but it's going to be a lot easier than trying to change a lot of things, through impact. And then what you can do is, if you're trying to bow your wrist or things like that, immediately stop doing that. That's not something that you have to do in the golf swing. I see this a lot. I get people in my lessons or people that come to clinics or things like that. We're kind of misinterpreting the whole bowing of the wrist thing. No one needs to bow their wrists. No one needs to do that. It's all about the grip and wrist angle matchup that you have. So you only, if you want to have a pro-like impact position and you want to have a weak grip, that's where you kind of need to bow your wrist to square up the face and be able to get the hands ahead and all that stuff. But outside of that, nobody needs to bow the wrist. There are plenty of players that do it, right? But there are plenty of players that there's a lot more players that don't do it. So like Victor Hovland, he does it, but he has a weak grip. John Rahm, he does it, has a very weak grip. Colin Morikawa, very weak grip. All these players that bow their wrists, they have fairly weak grips. The only one that I can think of that bows their wrist, significantly and doesn't really have a weak grip would be Dustin Johnson. Now, what Dustin Johnson does is a little bit unique in the sense that he has more of a neutral grip. He bows his wrist, but as he's coming down, he actually lets some of that bow go. So at the top, it'll look like this, but then when he comes into impact, it's going to have a lot less bow in it. Still a little bit, but a lot less. And then the other thing is that he has his hands ahead a lot more than most players do. So, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Sorry, we have some weather that's in the area, and that could be what's kind of causing the issues here. There we go. I don't know, it keeps kind of freezing a little bit. So, but anyway, yeah, you don't need to. If you happen to bow your wrist a little bit, that's fine. But if you're closing the face too much, I would definitely stop doing that. Because if you have a strong grip in a bowed wrist, yeah, your club face is going to be really close. And if you have a neutral grip and a bowed wrist, your club face is going to be pretty close. So if you want to release some of that or not have any of it at all, if that's what's happening. The other thing that you can kind of do is make sure that you are getting your body forward. A lot of times I see people trying to help the ball up in the air. And in doing that, that's going to tend to get the club face close because you're going to hit the ball sooner in the arc. So make sure that you're getting your body forward, right, on these shots. So that way, that will help you to have the face more open. The other thing is instead of maybe feeling like you're rolling the club through contact, what I would try to feel like is that you're kind of holding that face through contact. And I would actually try to hit some slices, get to where you can slice the ball and then tone it down. But the easiest thing to do is going to be just to weaken that grip. Typically, that's going to be the easiest thing to do. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see. Trying to find some good things to talk about here. No problem, Axel. Glad to help. Yeah, if you got any more questions, let me know. Be happy to answer them for you. All right. So I'm trying to go through some of these questions that I had ChatGPT pull up to see if there's any good ones I'd like to talk about. It's today the 15th. All right, so Axel says another one. What do you recommend to practice aligning putts correctly? Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick. So what I recommend doing is I like putting mirrors. Um, Always been a big fan of them. So basically, this is the one that I have. There's plenty of them out there. There's lots of good ones out there. If you go to the resources tab on the website, that'll bring you to the page with everything that we recommend. I believe there's a link for this specific one on there. It's made by Eyeline Golf, but like I said, there's lots of good ones out there. So let me talk about how we want to kind of line things up. So first, we have to know if we're seeing the right line. Because if we're not seeing the right line, then we're going to have a hard time lining up on the right line, right? So we have to make sure that we're seeing the right line. And then from there, we have to make sure that we are basically able to roll the ball on the line that we're seeing. So here's how we can test if we're seeing the right line or not. You use your putting mirror, go out, try to find a dead straight around 10-footer, 8 to 10-footer, dead straight. If it's not perfectly straight, that's okay, but we want it to be very, very close to straight. Basically, you don't want to leave the putt out of the hole. So you may need to like work around a little bit, but you want to try to find a dead straight putt. Once you find a dead straight putt, what you're going to do, let me explain why we need to find a dead straight putt. First, if you find a putt that is breaking, you may subconsciously kind of line up that way. It's a little bit harder to kind of do this test if the putt is if you know there's some break in the putt, because it can kind of throw it off. So we want to make sure that we have a nice straight putt. Now you could also do this indoors. I prefer it outside, but if you want to, it's going to be easier to find a dead straight putt indoors. But ideally, it would be outside. So now that I found my dead straight putt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my putter here, the face of my putter, and I'm going to move this mirror around until I feel like it is lined up perfectly with that hole. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so once I feel like that's lined up perfectly, I'm going to get back here and I'm going to see. I'm going to use my putter. I'm going to put it straight up and down here. And yeah, I got that pretty much lined up with it. Now, if you don't, now you have to find where your eyes need to be over the ball in order to see that is straight. So let's say you get back here and it's aligned a little, it's not going straight through the middle of the cup. It's aligned a little bit left or a little bit right. Then what you're going to do is you're actually going to move this to where it is lined up with it. And then you're going to get over it and you're going to find where your eyes need to be over this mirror in order for this to look like it's straight, because it can look very different. If my eyes are way over on this side of that line, then it might look like it's like with my eyes way on this side of that line. So I have this lined up with it. If I put my eyes on that side of that line, to me, this looks like it's now lined up to the left. And if I line it up over here, if I get farther, a little bit more to the inside, now this looks like it's lined up with it. So where your eyes are over it, the perspective that you have makes a big difference in what this looks like. So find where your eyes need to be. Typically, both of your eyes are going to be on this side of where the ball would be, and your eyes will typically be on that line, on the target line, or on this side of the target line. I haven't really seen any golfers that see the line better with their eyes on that side, like closer to the camera. So it's usually always on the line, or if it can be a few inches inside the line, and then on this side of the line. That's typically what's going to give you the best perspective. So that's the first part. So once you kind of get to where that you can see the right line, now it's a matter of seeing, okay, am I rolling it on the right line? So again, this is where the dead straight putt comes in. If I have a nice dead straight putt and I know that this is lined up with it, and then I'll put the ball in the slot here, and now I'm going to try to get know where this is all lined up, and then if I can roll this in, right, you can see I went right through the center. I can know that I can roll it right on that line. So I just roll some putts and see, okay, am I rolling it on that line? And if you are, you're good to go. You're seeing a good line and you're rolling it on that line. But if you find that, hey, I'm missing these putts to the left, I'm missing them to the right, well, now I can see the right line, but I'm not putting it on the line that I'm seeing. So then it's about evaluating, okay, well, I'm pulling the ball. Well, why am I pulling the ball? So let's say I rolled 10 of these and they all kind of ended up around this left edge of the hole, right? Consistently, maybe I made a couple, but consistently I was kind of more left of the hole. Well, then that means that you kind of have a little bit of a pull bias, and you got to kind of figure out what that is. Now, there could be lots of things that lead to that. It could be the strike. If you hit the ball on the heel of the putter, a lot of times that can make you hit it left. If you hit it on the toe, it can make you miss right. Obviously, if you open the face, for some reason, if you're not returning the face back to square, that could be part of it. The path of your putter. So me personally, something that I haven't fought in a while, but something that I used to fight with my putting is I used to pull putts. And the reason why I would pull putts is because I would push the putter out away from me in the backstroke. And then the only way I could kind of get it back to the ball is to swing the putter back. Basically my path was to the left. And then the combination of basically kind of lining up my face with my path, because my path was left, my face was lined up with it, I would hit the ball left, right? And I'd pull a lot of putts. So I had to work on making sure that my stroke arced naturally to the inside and then back out to the ball. So that way I had a very neutral arc. Now it's not straight back, straight through. Nobody has straight back, straight through. I think that's something that's widely misunderstood. People feel like it's straight back, straight through. It may feel that way, but every single golfer has an arcing stroke, whether it's a slight arc or a little bit more of a heavier arc, but every golfer has some arc to their stroke. And the reason is that we're putting on an incline, right? So if I putt on now the only way I could putt straight back and straight through if I was like this, if I was straight up and down and like this, I could putt straight back and straight through, but nobody putts like that. And because it would get, well, the lie angle of the putters, right, are like this, and you would have to be extremely toe down to be able to do that, and it just wouldn't work. So yeah, you'd kind of have to figure out, kind of look at things and kind of see, what's going on there. But that's how the mirror thing here, that's what I'd recommend doing to see if you're putting on the right line. See if you can see the right line, and then if you can putt it on the line that you're seeing. Beyond that, you would have to get some coaching or kind of look on video, try to see what you're seeing, and so on and so forth. On these putting mirrors, there are holes in them, so where you can do like a gate drill. So a gate drill is where we would just put a tee on each side of the putter, and then we'd have to putt it. You kind of have the tees kind of tight, so that way if you hit the tee, you would know you'd be mishitting the putt a little bit. So it would force you to kind of get that more in the center of the face in order for the putter to go through the gates. So the on these putting mirrors, they have those gates on there, so that way you can do that. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Get yourself a putting mirror. It's a great tool. I use it frequently in my practice for putting to help make sure that I'm still lined up and everything's good to go. And that's what I'd recommend doing. And as far as aligning putts, for longer putts, that's what I'm doing. Or for the shorter putts, kind of like what I just talked about there, I'm aligning with, something that's farther away, 10, 15 feet or so. You should be able to kind of line up with something. But let's say that you're farther away, right? It's harder to line up with something that's a lot farther away. So in that situation, I like to use intermediate targets. So I'll get behind the ball and I'll find the line that I kind of want to get this ball to start on. And then I will try to find some sort of imperfection in the green, something on the green that I can line up, like an old ball mark, something like that. Like, okay, I want to line the ball up directly with that. That's where I want it to start. Or I want to line it up, an inch to the left of that. That's going to put me in the spot that I need, right? And then I'm just going to line up to that thing that's in front of me that I can easily line up with, 2-3 feet in front, and then I'll putt to that. So that's another trick there, to use intermediate targets if you have a longer putt. And You can use intermediate targets on shorter putts. I just prefer to kind of line up with the hole, especially I would say inside 15 feet. I'm kind of lining up with whatever I'm kind of seeing, and sometimes I will use intermediate targets on those, especially if it's a big breaking putt, because I'm a lot of times I'm looking, I'm playing the putt out in my mind. I'm seeing the ball roll. So let's say that this is a big right to left breaker, right? I'm looking at and seeing the visualizing the line that this is rolling on. And then I might see, okay, well, there's a little speck on the green right where I want this to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and line up with that. It just makes it a lot simpler. Either that, or I'm visualizing that line. I don't know if any of you played like golf, like video games and stuff like that, or even like simulator golf, like where you're putting and things like that, where it shows kind of the roll of the green. Or if you see like when you watch golf on TV and you see like the tracer where it kind of shows the ball rolling on the green. That's what I'm seeing in my mind when I'm kind of lining up the putt. I'm seeing like the tracer of that going through. So I'm basically trying to line my body up with that tracer that I'm seeing in my brain. So that's kind of what I'd recommend doing for visualizing the putts. Gotta use some visualization to kind of find the right place. All right, let's keep the questions going here. Got any more new ones? All right. All right, so we got a question here that says, why do I hit behind the ball so often? All right, yeah, so let's go through that. So there are typically a handful of things that I see golfers do that tend to lead to hitting behind the ball pretty often. The first thing is ball position. I see a lot of golfers push the ball position a little bit too far forward, especially with the longer clubs, like the fairway woods and the longer irons and the hybrids and things like that. And when you have the ball position too far forward, it makes it really, really difficult to make ball first contact. So what needs to happen to make ball first contact is we need the bottom of our swing arc to be in front of the golf ball, to be on the target side of the golf ball. So if you imagine if I'm hitting the ball that way, I need my club to be working down, 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 still working down at the ball. And then I need it to bottom out 3 or 4 inches or so in front of the ball, and then start to work back up again. So if I put that ball position, I'm just going to show kind of extreme example here. If I move that ball position to like off of my lead foot, you can imagine how difficult, if you just kind of make a swing, you can imagine where the club is bottoming out. Well, my club's bottoming out like right there, right? Well, if that's what's happening, the only way I'm going to be able to hit this ball is if I come down and I barely graze the ground and then I hit it thin, or I come down and I don't get close to the ground and I top it or I miss it, or I come down and I hit the ground and I chunk it, right? The only way you're going to be able to make really good contact is to come down, have the club hit the ball with a descending blow, and then now I'm getting into the ground after that and then working up out of it. The bottom of your swing is not where the ball is. You want the bottom of your swing to be, you want the ball to be before the bottom of your swing. That's how you're going to be able to make good contact. So if we can understand that visual first, it might be a little bit easier if I kind of show you with the hula hoop here. So if we imagine this is the club, my hand is the club coming down, reaches the bottom, and then works back up. I need the ball to be like right here, right? So if my ball is like where my fist is here and the bottom of my swing arc is here, now my club is working down. I can make ball first contact here. Then my club is working into the ground. Now my club is reaching the bottom of the arc, and that's usually going to be somewhere in the middle of that divot. And then it's going to start to continue to work up out of the ground, and then maybe the end of my divot's like right there, right? The bottom of your swing is typically going to be around the middle of your divot. So if you're not making divots, it's just because you can't, because the ball is, now it's not that you have to take a divot on every shot, but typically if you're consistently like never taking a divot ever, like on any lie, like on a tight lie where it's wet or something like that, if you can't take a divot on that without chunking it, it typically means that the bottom of your swing arc is where the ball is and it's not in front of the ball. And that's, we need it to be in front of the ball to be able to make consistent contact. So ball position, move the ball, you know, typically to the middle of the stance. It's pretty good. You know, I would have the ball back, making sure that you are making good ball first contact before you would move the ball more forward. I find that a lot of people do the opposite. They have the ball really far forward and then they don't really ever move it back. So move it back to where you can make great contact with the ball, and it will likely help you quite a bit. So ball position would be one. And I'm talking even like fairway woods. There's nothing that says you can't have a fairway wood in the middle of your stance. It doesn't do you any good, you know, to have a fairway wood way up in your stance if you can't make good contact there. If you put it in the middle of the stance and you all of a sudden you make great contact, then that's great. That's what you want. You want to make great contact. So that's kind of what I would be looking at there. So that's the first thing I typically look at is ball position. The second thing that I would look at is how your body is moving in the backswing. A lot of times when I see people struggle with ball first contact, it's because they're moving their body too much to the right. They're kind of sliding their body too much to the right, or too much toward their trail side. So in the very beginning of the swing, we want a little move to that trail side to, or you can have a little move to the trail side to initiate that weight shift to the trail side, but we don't want to keep moving in that direction. Oftentimes when I see people struggle with chunk shots, they're kind of over here at the top of the swing. So what we want to do is we want to have that little move off the ball, and then we want to start rotating our hip back and around. So if you imagine there's a line drawn on the outside of my hip here, I want to kind of bump into that line initially, and then my hip is going to be on that line as I continue my backswing. And then as I get up to the top, I'm actually going to separate from that line and move toward the target a little bit. So if you look at your swing and you see that your hips are kind of moving too much this way or moving into that line too much, then I recommend doing what I call a simple chair drill. So this wouldn't be the best chair for this drill just because it swivels and it has wheels. Ideally, you would have a chair that doesn't move around, but this is just what I have handy right here. But basically what you do is you'd set up with this chair on the outside of your hip. You kind of nudge the chair. Then you're going to be on the chair, on the chair, on the chair. Then in the last 30% or so of the backswing, you're going to push that hip back and around and away from that chair, get your momentum moving toward the target. All right, so that'd be a simple drill that you can do if you see that is what's happening. The other thing is getting your momentum moving toward the target as you're getting up to the top of the swing. So you can kind of work on that a little bit with the chair drill, but sometimes when I see people do the chair drill, they'll kind of create that separation early. And then as they get to the top of the swing, the momentum starts to work the other way. So what we want to do is we want to load up, and then we want to start pushing away from that chair. And if you're having trouble with that, then I recommend something called the step drill. The step drill is probably the best weight shift drill, sequencing drill ever. So the way that the step drill works, you're going to start with your feet together. And you're not hitting a ball doing this. You're just getting the feel of the proper weight shift. You're going to start with your feet together. You're going to shift to your trail side, start throwing the club back. As you throw the club back, you're going to step forward. You're going to land on that lead foot. Again, you can see I'm getting my momentum moving forward. Then you're going to push into the ground, start that downswing, come all the way around into the full finish. So that's a great one to do. If you're on a mat, what I recommend doing is get yourself some masking tape or some painter's tape, just like this. I don't recommend like duct tape. It's too durable. It's too sticky. This stuff, it's not super sticky, and it's also not very durable. It's exactly what we want. So I can step you through kind of a progression that you can do with the step drill. So I put that tape on the ground, just lightly put it on the ground, getting your normal kind of stance set up. Put the sole of the club on the tape, like where you would kind of be setting up. Then come back here. Now do your step and focus on brushing that ground in front of that tape. If I hit the tape, I'm going to know it, right? Because it's likely going to stick to my club. So get to where you can do that, and then do a normal stance again with the club on top of the tape there, and do your normal stance. And now try to replicate that same thing, really kind of shifting into that lead side and coming down and hitting the ground in front of the tape. Once you're able to do that, then put the ball there and put the ball an inch or so in front of that tape. And then the goal would be to come down, miss the tape, and hit the ball. And if you can do that, that's going to help you to make some nice, clean contact, right? And let me show you what happens if you hit that tape. You can see how a lot of times if you hit it hard enough, it'll come off on the club. And then you just take it off and put a new piece of tape down. Don't put this crumpled up piece of tape back down. Once you've hit it, it's done, because you want it to kind of lay flat. And don't really try to stick it on there. Just lay it on there. There's plenty of stick to kind of keep it there. Just make sure it's kind of laying flat. We don't really need to like push it into the thing, because then it may not work quite as well. The last thing I would say for ball first contact is, I'm seeing this more and more recently with, everyone trying to shallow out the club. A lot of times we're overdoing it, and then that makes us swing too much from the inside. And when you swing too much from the inside, it moves the bottom of that swing arc more away from the target. So if you think about it this way, imagine I'm hitting in this direction, and I swing in the direction way out to the right. If you think about that, where's my club going to bottom out? It's going to bottom out more back here, right? So if we're coming down, we're swinging too much from the inside, we're going to tend to hit the ground before the ball. So if you're in that kind of situation, a simple drill that you can do is with the blue brick, where you kind of do the opposite of shallowing, where you kind of swing over the stick. You're still technically, hopefully, going to be coming down shallow. You just don't want to be overdoing it. So if you're not familiar with the blue brick, this is a training aid that Clay invented. If you're interested in getting one, you can go to the resources tab on the website. That has that's a page that has all our stuff on there, like all the stuff that we recommend and training aids that Clay has. This is kind of a really good one that we have here, the blue brick. So on here we have the shallowing drills, and I'm just putting the stick here in the sandwich setting since I got a wedge in my hand here. And instead of, normally we would be swinging underneath it, right? But if we overdo that and we get the club working too much from the inside, that can cause the hitting the ground too much before the ball. So what we would want to do, and if I grab the other stick here, now normally I would put this stick in the front of the blue brick and I'd lay it down and point it toward the target, but my wall is here, so I don't have that space to do that. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lay this kind of next to the brick here. It's just going to serve the same purpose because that hole is like right there. So what you would do is you just place this ball about a club head width outside of the stick. And now I just want to make sure that I swing over that stick. And if I swing over it, that means that I'm going to be pretty close to on plane. Now, if I can obviously overdo that and go the other way with it, but I want to make sure that I'm coming in and I'm swinging over it and pretty close to it to make sure that I'm not swinging too much from the inside. And that will help you to make better ball first contact. So really what it comes down to is thinking about the geometry of what's happening, getting that bottom of the swing arc to be in front of the ball. You can do that with ball position, and then you want to do that with body position throughout the swing. And then lastly, it would be about how this club is kind of working down. We don't want it working too much from the inside. We may tend to hit behind the ball. So get that club working more on a neutral plane down to the ball, and it will help your chances of making better ball first contact. Now, if you're really struggling with ball first contact, let's say you tried some of these things, you're not sure if you're doing them correctly or anything like that, I do offer online lessons, and I can give you specific drills on what you need to do to help you to make better ball first contact. So if you're interested in that, I'd love to have the opportunity to work with you. Somewhere on this page, you should see a link where you can sign up for the online lessons. If you don't see any spots available, no worries. Just click to join the waiting list. And then whenever I open up spots, we'll send out an email to the waiting list first to give them the first opportunity. And then after that, we'll send out an email to everybody else. All right. Let's keep it going here. we have more questions, feel free to post them. If not, no worries. See if we got one that's on the shorter size here. Mm-hmm. So we got one here. It says, what's the difference between a fade and a slice? So there's no like textbook definition. Both of these shots are shots that will, for a right-handed golfer, will curve to the right. Generally, what I would say is they basically mean the same thing. I would say that a slice is going to be probably more of a negative connotation. Like I really got too much, on that one. An over fade is what I would probably call a slice. A fade is more of like you intentionally did it. It's got, it's not excessive curving. And then I would say a slice is probably what, if we're trying to designate between the two, they're really the same thing. It's just that I would say a slice is more of like excessive curve, whereas a fade is like on purpose the amount of curve that you're looking for. You can over fade it, and that probably would mean a slice. So that's the way I would kind of look at it. Let's see here. This is interesting question. It says, how do I practice without making my swing worse? Well, you don't. The way that you would do that is you focus on impact. You focus on impact, and you focus on getting the things that need to happen at impact to happen. So what needs to happen at impact are ball first contact, center face contact, square club face, neutral path with some speed behind it. If we can do those things, then we're going to be able to hit good golf shots. And your swing is, a lot of that's subjective. I think a lot of people look at their swing and they're like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But like the ball doesn't care what your swing looks like. The only thing that the ball cares about is how the club is working into the ball. I'll be honest. I look at my swing and I see a lot of things that I wish were different. I wish I had more lag in my swing. I wish I had more hip rotation in my swing. There's a lot of things that I wish looked better, but I realized several years ago that none of that stuff really matters that much. In the grand scheme of things, I think if you really are looking to get better at golf, like if that is your goal, is to perform better. If you get the things to happen at impact that need to happen, your swing is going to look fine enough. And you're also going to have, I think everyone needs to kind of embrace individuality, and that, your swing is not going to look like, I wish my swing looked like Jake Knapp. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this Jake Knapp guy, but he is smooth, hits the ball a mile, and it looks like he's hardly trying. He's just barely coming through there. I wish my swing looked like that, but it's just not going to look like that because I'm not Jake Knapp, right? I'm sure there's a lot of guys on tour that wish their swing looked like that too, but it doesn't. I think Scotty Scheffler is a really great example of this, right? There are these videos from several years back when, I think it was the Masters, where there's a few holes where for a right-handed golfer, it would really be helpful if you could hit a draw, and he mostly hits fades. That's really what he's mostly comfortable with. So to get to like turn the ball over, he has to like kind of do this, like, he does something kind of funky with how he's coming through the ball to get the club face close enough, and things like that. And it looks funny. And I'm sure Scotty wished it looked better, right? But that's just it works for him. And I'm sure he wished his footwork looked better, and all that stuff. Hideki Matsuyama, the pause at the top. He was interviewed and asked about it. He's like, I don't even know that I'm doing that. I'm sure he wished it didn't look like that. I'm sure he wished he had like a more fluid, flowing kind of swing, but he doesn't, right? But hits the ball well. So it's like, who cares? I think we need to get a little bit more away from all the aesthetics, getting things to look so aesthetically pleasing, because a lot of times when we go down that route, we end up making the swing worse. We end up making our performance worse. And that's really what a lot of people equate with performance, is that the swing is bad. Bad performance does not necessarily mean that your swing is bad. I've had lots of online students that have beautiful looking golf swings and aren't performing the way that they want to. I currently have a guy that I think is like a 16 or 17 handicap and has a great looking golf swing. He's nailing all the pieces of the top speed golf system. Everything looks good. And for a long time, he's been obsessed with kind of the way that the swing looks, and it shows. Well, um, you know, if we got more obsessed with impact and getting the ball to do what it needs to do, and the swing just looks the way that it looks to get that to happen, then you're going to be in a much better spot for performance wise. You look on tour, you're going to see lots and lots of different golf swings. You look at professional golfers; they all have different looking golf swings, and that's kind of what the top speed golf system is all about. It's all about the things that all the best golfers do. If you look at all the best golfers, they're all doing the top speed golf system, every single one of them, right? So if we focus on that, then we'll typically be in a better spot, and kind of let everything else kind of be our own kind of swing signature. And if we focus on impact, getting ball first contact, getting center face contact, squaring up the face, neutral path down to the ball, if we focus on the technical things that make those things happen, then we'll be in a better spot. But if we just kind of focus on a bunch of random stuff that we see on YouTube, that's typically where we're going to end up in trouble and not really improving very much, working really hard maybe, but not improving very much, because we're not really focusing on the things that are really going to help us to play better golf. We're focusing on golf swing and not actually playing the game of golf. So that's kind of what I would recommend. All right. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there, since we don't have any more questions. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time.